Growing up as Eleanor Prescott's daughter was anything but easy. Every breath I took, every step I made, was scrutinized and weighed. My father, the CEO of Prescott Global, had my future mapped out long before I learned to read. "A Prescott never accepts mediocrity, Ava," he'd say, adjusting the cuffs of his tailored London suit. Our penthouse overlooking Central Park was his crown jewel, 21 rooms of sleek polished luxury screaming wealth and control. But to me it was less a home and more a high-rise prison. By the time I turned 27, I had followed the plan to perfection. Wharton graduate, associate VP at Prescott Global, and newly engaged to Harrison Aldridge III, heir to the Aldridge Pharmaceuticals fortune, and my father's preferred choice of husband. There was only one problem. I was hopelessly entirely in love with someone else. It happened on an ordinary Thursday. My Tesla stalled on the FDR drive during a downpour. That's when Noah Carter pulled up in a rattling old pickup, flashing a crooked grin that caught me off guard. "Sounds like a battery issue," he said, wiping grease from his hands. "I can take care of it, but it'll be a few hours." There was something in his clear gray eyes, steady, kind, that made me stay instead of calling a ride. I waited at his tiny garage in Queens, sipping terrible gas station coffee while he tinkered under the hood. That wait changed everything. Noah wasn't just a mechanic. He'd put himself through MIT, top of his class. He could have joined a Fortune 500 firm, but he chose to work with his hands, to fix what was broken. "Life's too short to chase titles that don't matter," he said, eyes glinting. That struck a chord deep inside me. For the first time someone had spoken the words I didn't even know I'd bear. One cup of coffee turned into two, then late-night ramen runs, secret walks along the river, and moments stolen between meetings and charity galas. He never asked about my background, never tried to impress. Instead he showed me how joy could live in little things: homemade grilled cheese, rooftop sunsets, and laughter. So much laughter. For 6 months I lived a double life. Harris by daylight, myself by night. But deep down I knew the facade couldn't last forever. The breaking point came during a charity gala at our penthouse. Harrison was rambling about venture capital mergers, to anyone polite enough to pretend they cared, while my mother floated from group to group, showing me off like a prize-winning show dog. "Eva will be leading the East Coast expansion after the wedding," she announced, smiling tightly at a cluster of Manhattan elites. "The Aldridges and Prescotts, just imagine the empire." I could barely breathe. Mumbling something about needing air, I slipped out to the rooftop garden, my fingers trembling as I dialed Noah. "I can't do this anymore," I whispered, tears streaking my makeup. "I can't marry Harrison. I can't live the life they want for me." Silence. Then his voice, low and steady. "Then don't. Be who you are, Ava." That's who I fell in love with. That night, everything changed. The next morning I walked into my father's home office. My heart thundered, but I stood tall. "Dad, I need to talk to you," I began, voice barely above a whisper. "I can't marry Harrison. I'm in love with someone else." The eruption that followed could have shattered glass. His face flushed a violent red. "Ava Prescott, are you seriously telling me you're throwing away your future for some grease monkey? He's an engineer, Dad, and he's brilliant. If you just, absolutely not," he roared, slamming his fist on the marble desk. "You will marry Harrison, or you can kiss your trust fund, your position, everything. Goodbye. Is that clear?" I straightened my spine, feeling something unfamiliar but powerful rise in me. "Crystal clear. Goodbye, Dad." Walking away from that office was the hardest thing I'd ever done. My mother's dramatic sobs, my father's fury, the whispers of the staff. It all echoed in my ears as I packed a small suitcase. Noah waited outside his modest walk-up, concern written all over his face. When I told him everything, he tried to reason with me. "You're giving up your whole world, your family, your future. I can't let you do that for me." I silenced him with a kiss. "I'm not giving up my life, Noah. I'm finally beginning it." The months that followed were a crash course in reality. I moved into Noah's tiny one-bedroom in Queens, got an entry-level position at a small consultancy, and learned what it meant to live paycheck to paycheck. It wasn't easy, but for the first time I felt free. My parents, of course, didn't go quietly. They froze my accounts, canceled my cards, even called my new employer to try and have me fired. But each challenge only brought Noah and me closer. When we decided to get married, we chose a small park near the East River. No designer gown, no photographer, just a barbecue with a few close friends. The morning of the wedding, I received a text from my mother: "Your father and I will be attending. One last chance to fix this mistake. I showed it to Noah, my hands shaking. He gave me a soft smile and squeezed my hand. It's your call, love. Whatever you want. I wanted them there. As much as they'd hurt me, they were still my parents. When I walked down the makeshift aisle in a white dress I'd bought on sale, my eyes found them standing stiffly at the back. My father looked like he'd just bitten into a lemon. My mother dabbed at her eyes with a monogrammed handkerchief. Neither moved to give me away. At the reception, paper plates, grilled burgers and plastic folding chairs, they made their final attempt. Eva darling, my mother pleaded, her voice edged with panic. It's not too late. Harrison would still take you back. Think of everything you're throwing away. My father didn't bother with pretense. This is your final warning. Stay with him and you'll never see a dime. Is that what you want? A life of struggle. I turned to look at Noah, laughing with our friends. His rented suit, a little too snug. His smile so genuine it made my heart swell. Then I turned back to my parents, locked in their world of legacies and illusions. What I want, I said calmly, is to be happy, and Noah makes me happy. If you can't understand that, I said clearly, then maybe we don't need your money, or you in our lives. My father's face darkened into that familiar shade of rage. You're no daughter of mine, he spat, turning sharply on his heel. My mother hesitated just a flicker, then gathered her coat and followed him. I stood still watching them disappear, feeling the final thread between us snap. Then I felt Noah's arm wrap gently around my waist. You okay? He asked softly. I leaned into him, watching my past vanish through the trees. Never better. That was 6 months ago. Since then we've built a quiet life, simple, real, ours. Noah continued working at the garage during the day, and took night classes for his master's in engineering. I threw myself into my consulting job, slowly building a name of my own. We watched our spending, clipped coupons, learned how to fix leaky faucets, and cook on a tight budget. And through it all we laughed, we worked, we loved harder than ever, we were happy, truly. But Noah had been keeping something from me, and what he hadn't told me was about to change everything. It was a gray Friday evening, unremarkable in every way. I came home early, excited to surprise him with takeout from our favorite Thai place, cheap, spicy, perfect. But the apartment was empty. A note sat on the counter, scribbled in his rushed handwriting, working late at the garage. Love you. Normally I wouldn't have thought twice. But something felt off. He'd been distant lately, distracted, taking secret phone calls, leaving at odd hours. A tight knot formed in my chest. Was history repeating itself? Was I losing everything again? Unable to sit still, I grabbed the takeout and drove toward the garage. But when I got there it was completely dark. No lights, no Noah, and his old truck wasn't in its usual spot. My hand shook as I called his phone. Straight to voicemail. Panic started to set in, then my phone buzzed. A message from an unknown number. Mrs. Carter, please come to 1875 Highland Avenue immediately. It's about your husband. My heart stopped. Highland Avenue. That was across town in the industrial district, nowhere near the garage. I punched the address into my GPS, heart thudding, and drove through the city's dusk-draped streets, 1,000 worst-case scenarios racing through my head. The building that greeted me looked like something out of a tech magazine, sleek glass walls, chrome accents, security gates that opened automatically as I approached. A uniformed guard met me at the entrance to the underground garage. Mrs. Carter, he said, nodding respectfully. Please take the executive elevator to the top floor. Executive elevator, top floor. What on earth was going on? I rode up in silence, my heart pounding in time with the soft hum of the elevator. When the doors opened, I stepped into a dazzling office suite, floor-to-ceiling windows, overlooking the skyline, a glass desk gleaming beneath recessed lights. And there, with his back to me, stood Noah, but not the Noah I knew. Gone were the jeans and oil-streaked in their place an immaculate navy suit, fitted and polished, like something off a Milan runway. When he turned, his eyes met mine, warm, familiar but with a flicker of nerves. Charlie, he said softly, using the nickname only he used. I think it's time I told you everything. Before he could explain, the office doors burst open, and there, like something out of a nightmare, stood my father, my mother, and Harrison Aldridge III. What is the meaning of this? My father thundered, his face already purple with rage. Security said Ava was headed up here. What are you doing in the CEO's office? You, Harrison added, practically choking. You're a mechanic. Noah calmly adjusted his tie and stepped around the desk. Actually, Mr. Prescott, he said evenly, I'm the Noah Carter, founder and chief executive officer of Carter Technologies. The silence that followed was deafening. My mother sank into a nearby chair. Harrison looked like a balloon slowly deflating, and for the first time in my life, my father had nothing to say. But, you're a mechanic, my mother whispered. Noah turned to me and took my hand with a smile. I own a network of auto shops, he said gently. That was my first business, launched with a loan from a professor. But Carter Technologies is my main focus now. We specialize in next-generation EV battery systems. I blinked, trying to absorb it all. Why didn't you tell me? I finally asked. Because, he said, brushing a strand of hair from my face. When we met, I had just made the Forbes 30. Every woman I dated wanted the title, not the man. But you, he smiled, voice full of warmth. You loved me when I was just the guy under the hood. I own a chain of auto repair shops, yes. Noah continued calmly. That was my first venture, funded with a small loan from my engineering professor. But Carter Technologies, that's where my real focus lies now. He glanced toward the city skyline behind him. We're a tech firm developing revolutionary electric vehicle batteries. That's what the late nights were about. We were finalizing our prototype. My head was spinning. Why didn't you ever tell me? I asked, my voice barely a whisper. Because I needed to know, Noah said gently, turning to face me. When we met, I had just made Forbes 30. Every woman I dated only saw my net worth, or my last name. But you fell for me when I was just a guy with grease on his hands. You gave up everything for me. I had to be sure. My father finally found his voice, his business mind clicking into gear. Carter Technology, that's the company that just redefined the entire EV battery industry. Every major auto manufacturer is scrambling to get a seat at that table. Noah nodded. Our market valuation hit $122 billion last week. Not quite Prescott Global territory yet, but we're getting close. I couldn't help it. I laughed, the kind of deep, free laugh that bubbles up when irony is too delicious to ignore. All those months of them looking down on the man I loved, thinking he was beneath me, and he'd been quietly building an empire beneath their noses. Noah's expression shifted slightly, his tone firming. But before we talk shop, I'd like to discuss how you treated your daughter. The woman who, by the way, became one of the largest shareholders in Carter Technologies the moment she married me. My father paled. Prescott Global had been trying and failing to break into the EV market for years. A connection to Carter Technologies would have been the holy grail. Now see here, he blustered, attempting to regain control. We were only looking out for Ava's future, trying to get her fired. Noah's voice was smooth, cold steel. Trying to break her down until she cried herself to sleep. That's not protection, that's punishment. I took a deep breath and turned toward my father, my voice steady. You always said Prescotts never settle for second best. Well, I didn't. I married the most brilliant, kind and grounded man I've ever known, and I did it without knowing a single thing about his fortune. My mother stepped forward, her eyes glistening, arms outstretched. Ava, sweetheart, we were wrong, we know that now. Please come home. I looked around the office. At Noah, at everything we'd built together with our own hands and hearts. I am home, Mom, but if you want to be a part of our lives, it has to be on our terms. No more manipulation, no more control. My father looked like he was choking on something bitter. And what about Prescott Global? He asked stiffly. Noah smiled, sharp and calm. Well, sir, we've received multiple offers for exclusive partnerships, some from your biggest competitors. Actually, but given the family connection, I thought we might consider something different. If you're interested in discussing it as equals. The next hour felt surreal. My father and Noah talked business like old rivals finding common ground, while my mother discreetly asked about square footage in our apartment, and muttered about how we deserved a real kitchen. Harrison had slunk off somewhere, licking his wounded ego, and wasn't missed. Later that night, back in our tiny apartment, the evening's events still bouncing in my brain, I finally asked the question that had been burning in me for months. Why, Noah? Why keep working at the garage? Why live like this when you have billions? He pulled me close, brushing his nose against my temple. Because the garage keeps me grounded, he murmured. Reminds me where I started. And this place, this cramped little apartment, these months with you have been the happiest of my life. We made this life ourselves. No silver spoons, no handouts, just love and grit. Tears welled in my eyes. I love you, you sneaky billionaire, he grinned. I love you too, you runaway heiress. Life changed after that, but not in the ways people expected. We moved, yeah, but into a modest townhouse we picked together, not some estate with a gate. I joined Carter Technologies to run their new philanthropic foundation, pouring our resources into helping young entrepreneurs get their shot. Noah still spent weekends at his first garage, teaching underprivileged teens how to rebuild engines and gain confidence. As for my parents, their mom now drops not so subtle hints about grandchildren needing educational trust funds, while dad has developed a surprising respect for Noah. Their weekly business meetings sometimes turn into debates about battery technology, classic cars, or even meditation. It's weirdly endearing. And me? I finally get it. I finally understand what Noah meant when he said life's too short to live it on paper, because sometimes the best things come disguised as broken down Teslas and gas station coffee, and the very best thing. Every so often when we pass our old building, or pick up takeout from that little Thai place, Noah looks at me the same way he did that very first day, like I'm still the woman who chose him when he was just a mechanic. And he was just a man with a kind smile and grease on his hands. Because in the end, love doesn't care about boardrooms or bank accounts. It cares about who you are when the rest is stripped away. And we, Noah and I, we found something better than billions. We found each other.